Whew, I am so sorry for how long it's taken me to make this video or any video. I'm not going to waste any time defending myself or focusing on the past, so let's just get right back into it. So Season 3 finale begins with Wukong going head to head with LBD. Despite initially gaining the upper hand, Wukong eventually becomes possessed by her. It's unclear if Wukong is self-aware during this time, but I can only imagine how he feels if that's the case. The very people he's been trying to protect are being destroyed by his body. It's not until MK confronts LBD's ideology with some truth that Wukong seems to regain some control. Instead of striking MK, at the last second he grabs his staff instead.
Thanks for not giving up on me, bud.
This choice of words is really interesting, and I think it shows just how humbled Wukong has become. He doesn't chastise MK for coming after him, and he doesn't try to tell anyone that he can still do this on his own. This is for the first time, I think, a complete and open surrender. I think we also see that Wukong has more faith in MK's abilities now, and trusts him to fight on his own, instead of withholding from him. After this, Wukong admits to MK that he knows he can never make things right. He can never make it up to him after all that. He admits that he had no idea he would live for this long, let alone ever become a mentor for someone. He even says that he is not good at it. And even though it feels pointless and hopeless, Wukong even apologizes for everything, all of it. Is this an impossible redemption? Is this a real redemption arc or a fake one? Wukong is right when he says that he can never make up for all that he's done. He has sinned for far too many lifetimes. He can never bear the weight of all of that. But I personally can't help but see this as a true redemption, because we do see a true change of character here, even if it took way longer than it should have. But I don't think the point of this is whether or not Wukong deserves to be redeemed. Whether he does or not, it's his friend's choice whether they want to forgive him, and that's exactly what they choose to do. Not because he deserves it, but because he's their friend. It's fitting that at the end of the season, Tang's voice narrates how, even though sometimes it seems as though we're back where we started, we can still grow. There are still new stories to tell. Season 4 Wukong is encouraging MK and even saying that he has already done more for the world than he ever did, and at such a young age. When the scroll is opened by mistake, Wukong sacrifices himself to protect MK and is absorbed himself. As he is being absorbed, Wukong is smiling, but we can see the shame and regret seep through as he realizes that all this is happening because of his past mistakes. It is a common pattern for Wukong to be absent for a majority of a season, but in this case it's not his fault. He's missing because he was trying to protect MK, and even as he's stuck in the scroll, he's actively trying to escape in order to help him. He is forcing himself through old memories, tearing them apart, trying to get out. And even when he does get out, it's only briefly before being captured by Azure Lion. We'll get back to Azure Lion and the Brotherhood in a second, but I want to talk about this scene that takes place where Wukong is briefly reunited with MK. The scroll's curse is taunting them all, but it's really zeroing in on Wukong and MK, even separating them to make them more vulnerable. MK is struggling to get up or find the strength to stop this thing when it's really in his own image and is saying a lot of half-truths. But Wukong, on the other hand, rebukes it. Surprisingly, even when taunted with his own past lifetimes, he refuses to give in to the shame and states that all of them need to define themselves by the choices they make today. As he says this, a group of friends from his past lifetime each walk by him, laying a hand on his shoulder. This morphs into the present, where we can see the new friends he has with him right now, still supporting him as they did. This of course takes place in his mind, but still, it's incredibly beautiful. The only way Wukong is able to bear the weight of all his past mistakes, the only way he's able to move forward, is because he has some friends who will support him and who will love him no matter what. I'm not going to get into the issues he had with the Brotherhood too deeply, because again, to me it's a little bit unclear how much Wukong was in the wrong, although he's clearly made a lot of mistakes. It seems like Azure Lion views Wukong as a traitor because he eventually saw things differently than they did, and he ended up choosing the side of heaven, which Azure sees as corrupt. But even if Wukong was in the wrong about that, again, I'm not sure he was. He may have been able to handle it differently though, but we know now that Azure Lion's plan was never sustainable and it was never going to work to begin with. Where I think Wukong is much more clearly in the wrong is in relation to Macaque. Macaque has more or less slowly somewhat been redeemed at this point. He was definitely an antagonist at the beginning of the series, but when it came to working for LBD, that was definitely against his will. but ultimately he was willing to put aside his past hurts and help Wukong and his team. And while he's still not very actively involved with anyone, we for the first time see Macaque approach MK not to torment him, but to genuinely help him personally. As MK and Macaque wander through the fractured memories in the scroll to find Wukong, we see in one of those memories that Wukong and Macaque used to be close, like brothers. But Wukong feared mortality so much and went to such great lengths to overcome it that when he's ultimately punished and trapped by the Jade Emperor, he says some very harsh, biting things to Macaque, even though Macaque is just trying to be a good friend to him. Maybe Wukong was just bitter in this scene, but it seems as though he viewed Macaque as a coward because Macaque wasn't always in support of all his plans. In reality, Macaque viewed those plans as unwise and was concerned, and eventually was tired of seeing Wukong suffer the consequences of his actions over and over, never listening to reason. Macaque confronted Wukong for his obsession with power and how it's turned him into a demon. We can assume this is where Macaque officially parted ways with his brother, starting the bad blood that they have today. I don't know everything else that happened between them after that, but presently Macaque admits that he believed that Wukong was bad, and that Azure Lion still thinks Wukong is bad. But now, as Macaque is reflecting, he admits that all of them were on a path of self-destruction, not just Wukong. When they finally arrive at Wukong's location, they find him teetering on the brink of despair, completely shattered. He's already aware of his many lifetimes of mistakes, but now he's been forced to relive them over and over again in this memory trap. He tells MK that his intentions from the very beginning were only to protect those he cared about, but that somewhere he lost sight of all of that. MK reminds Wukong of his own words to him before, that while he can't fix everything, he can try to leave each situation he finds a little better than before. And the good thing about being immortal is he can continue to do this for as long as it takes. In some ways, I could see this being a very small comfort, but it does give Wukong the strength to get back up again. I feel like this pretty much completes Wukong's character arc. Perhaps Wukong finally has become a good mentor. There's a look of pride in his eyes as he affirms each member of his team while preparing them to take on Azure. He's working with each one of them personally. He's also much stronger in how he teaches MK. He challenges him not to shy away from his new abilities, even though they terrify him. And this time they all work together with each other, openly and honestly, to form a plan. This show has a lot of strong messages that really resonate. I like that the show doesn't make Wukong out to be this perfect hero, and it doesn't even really argue whether or not Wukong deserves to be the Monkey King. That's not the point. The point is, this is who he is, and people need him, so he has to step up, whether he is worthy or not. No matter what he's done in the past, it's still better that he does something good now. Another message in the show is that you should do what you know is right, and not blindly follow your elders. Not to disrespect them, but to remember that they're human, and they can also be wrong, even very wrong. The dynamic between MK and Sun Wukong reminds me a lot of an estranged father and son. Often fathers aren't there for their children the way they should be, and then when they try to make up for it, it's almost too late. And to make matters worse, often the children start to emulate their parents as they grow older. But MK is proof that the next generation can break the cycle. They can help to heal the damage caused by the previous generation. And sometimes reconciliation and redemption with these flawed mentors is possible.